For centuries, the seas were highways of commerce, arteries of wealth connecting empires. For England and the Dutch Republic, they were the source of immense power. But beneath the calm surface of trade and diplomacy, a rivalry was simmering, ready to boil over. The competition for control of global trade routes had reached a fever pitch. Navigation acts passed by England aimed to cripple Dutch dominance, and tensions tightened like a rope about to snap. The world was holding its breath, unaware that the era of peaceful competition was about to end in a blaze of fire and steel. The silence was broken, not by a declaration of war, not by a diplomat's decree, but by the roar of cannon fire across the English Channel. In May 1652, a chance encounter between the fleets of Dutch Lieutenant Admiral Martin Tromp and English General at Sea Robert Blake escalated with shocking speed. A dispute over naval salutes, a matter of national pride, became the spark that ignited a tinderbox of economic and political grievances. The first shots were fired, and in that instant, the seas caught fire. The age of trade was over. The age of war had begun. Suddenly, the ocean transformed. The calm waters that once carried merchant ships laden with spices and silks became a churning battlefield. Massive wooden warships, the pride of both nations, crashed through the waves, their sails snapping violently in the wind. The organized world of trade routes dissolved into chaos as fleets collided. From the North Sea to the shores of the Mediterranean, the oceans became the main stage for a brutal European conflict. This wasn't a war fought in muddy trenches. It was a war fought on the unpredictable, unforgiving sea. On the decks of these floating fortresses, the reality of 17th century naval warfare was terrifyingly real. Sailors, many of them ordinary men pressed into service, worked in a symphony of controlled chaos. They hauled heavy cannons into position by hand, their muscles straining with every pull. The air grew thick with the acrid smell of gunpowder, a choking black smoke that obscured vision and stung the eyes. Officers, their faces grim under the strain, shouted orders to be heard over the deafening roar of broadsides, the splintering of wood, and the screams of the wounded. This was warfare at its most visceral, a close-range brawl where survival was measured in inches and seconds. Out of this maelstrom, legends were forged. In the Dutch Republic, a commander was rising who would become a national hero, Mitchell de Ruyter. His tactical genius and unwavering courage would soon make him the terror of the English fleet. On the other side, English admirals like Robert Blake and George Monk, hardened by civil war, brought a ruthless efficiency to naval combat. These were the titans of the sea, men whose decisions could determine the fate of nations. Their personal rivalries played out on a grand scale, with fleets of over 100 ships maneuvering like chess pieces on a vast, watery board. Victory and defeat were often decided by the elements. A sudden change in wind could give one fleet a decisive advantage, allowing them to hold the weather gauge and dictate the terms of engagement. A sudden squall could scatter formations, turning an organized battle into a chaotic free-for-all. Captains and admirals had to be master sailors as much as they were master tacticians, reading the sky and the sea with an expert eye. They used fire ships vessels packed with combustibles and set ablaze to drift into enemy lines, hoping to sow panic and break their formation. Every battle was a high-stakes gamble against both the enemy and nature itself. The scale of the conflict was staggering. What began as a skirmish quickly escalated into a full-blown war that consumed the resources of both nations. Shipyards worked day and night, transforming forests of oak into powerful ships of the line. The demand for sailors, cannons, and gunpowder was insatiable. Entire sea lanes were shut down, and the global commerce that had built both empires began to collapse under the weight of war. The conflict wasn't just a series of naval battles. It was an economic war, a struggle for the very survival of their way of life. The first major battles were a brutal awakening. Fleets numbering in the dozens clashed in epic confrontations that lasted for days. The Battle of the Kentish Knock, the Battle of Dungeness, the Battle of Portland Each was a scene of unimaginable destruction. Hulls were splintered by cannonballs, masts toppled, and rigging burned away. The sea became a graveyard of ships and men, the water stained red and littered with floating debris. For the sailors who survived, the psychological scars ran as deep as the physical ones. They had witnessed a level of destruction that was previously unthinkable. As the smoke from the first year of fighting began to clear, a grim reality set in. There would be no quick victory. Damaged ships limped back to port, their crews exhausted and depleted. The echoes of distant cannons still haunted the coastlines. Both England and the Dutch Republic had suffered heavy losses, but their resolve had only hardened. The sea was littered with the wreckage of their ambition, a stark reminder of the cost of their rivalry. This was not the end. It was only the beginning of a much larger, deadlier struggle that would rage for decades and redefine the balance of power in Europe forever. The seas would never be the same. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey into naval history fascinating, be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you don't miss our next chapter. We'll see you in the next video.